many years. Here's what he had to say. This past season, many people criticize referees for the amount of physicality that is a part of today's WNBA game, urging officials to better protect players who are subject to hard fouls. But as directly as they may be involved, it's sometimes not entirely their call. This is where it gets interesting. Basically, what I gather from this is there's a committee that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, what is okay, what is acceptable, what is not, and the referees are following that law. What I also gather from this is that the league is basically saying it can be this physical, let it be this physical. The problem that a lot of us have with the referees is it's either very physical and they're calling everything, or they're missing calls.
It wasn't just a foul, it was a full-on cultural detonation. The moment Angel Reese bodied Caitlin Clark, the air left the arena. One frame, frozen in time. Clark hits the floor, the whistle blows, and boom, the internet explodes. Within minutes, Twitter turned into a war zone. One side screaming, "That's a flagrant." On the other clapping back, "It's just physical basketball." TikToks popped up faster than a fast break. Memes of Clark on the floor, Reese standing over her like a villain in a Marvel finale. The comment sections? Straight up battlegrounds. But here's what no one's ready to admit. This wasn't about just that foul.
Calling all the shots. One significant point of internal discussion in the league has been legislating screen setting. This one made me laugh out loud because if any of you guys have been in any of my watch parties for the games, I am always dumbfounded by how many times they call.
This was the moment fans snapped. Not at Reese, not even at Clark, but at the WNBA's referees. Because this wasn't an isolated play. It was a symptom, a reflection of a bigger, uglier pattern. People aren't ready to hear this, but WNBA officiating is slowly becoming the villain of the 2025 season. Inconsistency, missed calls, double standards. And when the two most polarizing players in the league collided, that pressure cooker finally blew the lid off. You had Clark fans crying foul, calling it a cheap shot. Reese stands firing back with receipts from earlier games where Clark wasn't called for similar or worse. Then came the narratives. They protect Clark because she's the golden girl, versus Reese is being villainized for playing hard. And the refs? Silent. No post-game explanation, no clarity, just another call, or non-call, fueling the fire. This wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. A demand for transparency, consistency, accountability.
I think sometimes it's misunderstood that referees make those decisions about the style of play and the interpretation of the rules. That's not true. What actually happens is that we have a competition committee for stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers, and that competition committee is the committee that dictates the state of the game. And this was something that I actually tweeted, and a lot of you guys were saying, this is why it's rigged, this is why it's rigged.
Because if the league wants the WNBA to grow, it can't let biased whistles steal the spotlight from the game. One foul shouldn't break the internet, unless the internet's been waiting to break. And if you think that moment was wild, wait till you see how the league tried to spin it next. Here's where things get messy. Just one day after Kennedy Carter body-checked Caitlin Clark to the floor, no ball, no warning, just smoke, the WNBA didn't call it a flagrant. No ejection, no technical, just a basic foul and keep it moving. But then Angel Reese stands up from the bench, cheers the play, doesn't even step on the court, and she gets fined. You tell me, how does that make sense? This wasn't about the foul anymore. It was about what happened after.
To be inconsistencies in how the referees are calling certain games. But this in itself, I kind of hated the fact that it opens up with a competition committee for stakeholders. Stakeholders is the first group of people that this referee mentions. Stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers. Those are the people
about who the league chooses to punish and who they let slide. Because let's be real, fans weren't just mad about Carter's hit. They were mad about the silence that followed. No league statement, no suspension, no official accountability. Just another chapter in the protect the narrative playbook. And in the middle of it, Caitlin Clark, the face of the league, whether she asked for it or not. Now, Clark didn't call for that foul. She didn't ask the league to protect her. But the perception? That's where it gets dangerous. Because every missed call, every lenient ruling, every fine that makes zero sense, it chips away at trust. It makes fans wonder, is this about basketball or branding and Angel Reese? She's been through this storyline before, loud, emotional, unapologetic, and constantly punished for it. But Clark gets pushed with no ball in play, and the league shrugs it off? That's not just inconsistency. That's a double standard, playing out in real time on national TV in front of millions. The internet didn't overreact. It noticed, and the WNBA just told the world, without saying a word, who they're willing to protect, and who they'll penalize for clapping from the sidelines. Yeah, this is bigger than a foul. This is about who the league thinks the hero is. And spoiler alert, fans aren't buying it. Numbers don't lie, but apparently, refs do. Let's get into the cold, hard stats behind the Angel Reese-Caitlin Clark saga, because the calls on the court, they tell a story no highlight reel wants to show. Angel Reese, known for her aggressive, physical style, actually draws fewer fouls than you'd expect for a player with that kind of energy. Yet somehow, she's consistently getting called for. Fouls when it's borderline or even questionable. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, the league's shining star, is rarely getting called for contact that would make most players cringe. In fact, looking at the last 10 games, Reese averages about 3.2 fouls per game, with multiple questionable calls that were called against her when replay shows Clark initiating contact. Clark? She's averaging 2 fouls per game but has benefited from some eyebrow-raising no calls, especially on plays where she pushes defenders off balance or flails for the foul. This is the kind of imbalance that fuels the golden girl versus villain narrative. And it's not just fan drama. It's reflected in the official box scores. What really stings? Historical context. Look back over the past seasons and the same pattern emerges. The league's top scorers, usually white, tend to get the benefit of the doubt, while the hard-nosed, physical players, often black, get the whistle blown against them more aggressively. That disparity isn't just unfair, it's disrespectful. It shapes how players are perceived, how the media spins their story, and how fans rally or turn against them. So when Reese gets fouled hard and the call isn't made, but then she gets flagged for the next controversial move, it's no wonder fans call it bias. This isn't just about one game or one call. It's a glaring spotlight on how WNBA officiating quietly reinforces an unfair narrative. And if the league wants to keep its credibility, this story of stats versus calls is one they have to fix, starting yesterday. Because in 2025, basketball fans want fairness, not favorites. And that means no more playing favorites with the whistle. If you think the drama stayed on the court, think again. The real battle? It's online, and it's savage. The moment that foul on Caitlin Clark happened, or didn't depending on who you ask, Twitter and TikTok blew up like it was the NBA Finals, not a WNBA game. Fans weren't just debating calls. They were calling out the league for what feels like decades of shady officiating. Tweets like, WNBA refs clearly playing favorites, and Angel Reese gets fouled every game but never gets the call, flooded timelines. Memes comparing Reese to a villain and Clark to a golden princess went viral overnight. One Reddit thread hit over 10,000 comments debating whether the league's refs have a Clark bias, and it's not just fans. Former players and analysts jumped in, with some calling the officiating embarrassing, and others saying the league's silence speaks volumes. What's wild is how divided the fan base is. Reese supporters say she's the hardest worker in the league, and the only one bringing the physicality the WNBA desperately needs. Clark's fans argue she's the future and deserves the protection to shine on the biggest stage. But the refs? They're stuck in the middle. Or worse, they're fueling the fire with inconsistent calls that make every game feel like a battle off the court. Social media isn't just talking about the foul anymore. It's questioning the entire foundation of WNBA officiating, and that's huge. Because in a league fighting for respect, growth, and serious attention, losing the trust of millions of fans online, that's a crisis. The question now, can the WNBA fix this before it turns into a full-blown PR nightmare, or are we watching the slow unraveling of the league's credibility, one missed call at a time? Stick around because the next section dives into what the players themselves are saying. And it's not pretty. What you're not hearing on TV. The real talk happening behind closed doors. Players aren't just quietly grinding anymore. They're speaking up, and trust me, it's raw. Angel Reese has dropped subtle hints in interviews about feeling targeted by referees. She's called out the inconsistency without naming names, but fans hear the message loud and clear. I'm getting the short end of the stick. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, usually cool and composed, has admitted in recent pressers that the games feel more physical than ever, sometimes crossing the line, but insists she's focused on basketball, not drama. But here's the kicker. Some insiders say she's been frustrated by what feels like unequal treatment when it comes to fouls and calls. It's a powder keg. The unspoken tension between two of the league's brightest stars mirrors what's happening in the stands, online, and, most importantly, on the court. This isn't just about two players. It's about a league still figuring out how to manage star power, media narratives, and raw emotions in a hyper-visible era. And it raises the question, is the WNBA failing its players by not addressing this head-on? Because when top athletes start feeling unheard, you know trouble's brewing. This drama, full of subtle digs, here's the truth, no one's saying loud comments. The WNBA's officiating isn't just bad sometimes, it's broken. If the league wants to grow, people aren't ready to hear listen. But it's time to call out the elephant on the court, but to the players who live this every game. Missing calls. Otherwise, they're systematically skewing the game in ways that impact players like Angel Reese. And you definitely don't want to miss what happens when these simmering frustrations finally hit a breaking point. It's a pattern that's been brewing under the surface for years. And guess what? It reflects deeper issues. Racial bias, media favoritism, and a league still trying to find its identity in a world that often underestimates women's sports. Think about it. The same refs keep making questionable calls against Reese, the powerhouse who plays with relentless grit. Meanwhile, Clark's style, flashy, skill-driven, and yes, marketable, gets the benefit of the doubt more often than not. It's like the whistle is a spotlight, shining brighter on some and dimmer on others, and the consequences go beyond just one game. Calls affect momentum, confidence, and even contract negotiations. They shape narratives that can make or break a player's career. NBA officials need serious accountability, from better training to transparency in calls and consequences. Because right now, it feels like the league is playing referee roulette, and players are the ones losing. No more soft whistles or questionable no calls. The WNBA can't afford to lose its integrity over something as basic as fair officiating. And here's the cliffhanger. The league's next move on this could change everything, or confirm what fans already suspect. Stay tuned, because the drama is just getting started. So, what now? The WNBA is staring down a crossroads that could define its future, and not in a good way if they keep ignoring the ref problem. The league has built momentum, growing fan bases, bigger TV deals, rising stars like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, lighting up the court. But all that progress risks getting overshadowed by one stubborn issue: inconsistent, biased officiating. Fixing this isn't just about fairness, it's about survival. Because fans aren't just casual observers anymore. They're critics with Twitter fingers, Reddit threads, and endless memes ready to call out every missed call or unfair foul. Players, they're fed up. And if the WNBA wants to keep its brightest talents and continue climbing in the sport's hierarchy, it has to act fast, with transparency, training, and yes, accountability for the refs. Here's the reality check. No league in 2025 can afford to let trust erode, especially when women's sports are finally grabbing the spotlight they deserve. But here's the wild card, the refs themselves. Can they handle the pressure and rise to the occasion? Or will we see more drama, more questionable calls, and more divided fan bases? The next chapter is unwritten, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Will the WNBA fix the whistle, or will the whistle break the league's momentum? One thing's for sure, whatever happens next, the whole basketball world will be watching, and you won't believe what's coming in the next segment. If you thought the refs were the only ones under pressure, think again. The WNBA is officiating. saga has lit up social media like a wildfire. From TikTok reaction clips to Reddit threads blowing up with hot takes, fans aren't just watching anymore, they're leading the conversation. Memes mocking the phantom fouls called on Angel Reese? Check. Viral videos pointing out how Caitlin Clark seems to get a free pass when she's on the receiving end of hard fouls? Double check. This isn't your average fan outrage. It's a full-blown cultural moment. People are calling out the league for what they see as blatant favoritism, sparking debates about race, media bias, and respect for players. And it's not just casual viewers jumping in. Former WNBA players have taken to Twitter, dropping truth, bombs about the invisible bias that's been going on for years, but finally hitting a tipping point. Their voices add weight to the argument, turning the conversation from hot takes into a real movement demanding change. The hashtag #RefBias has been trending, and it's got the league's social media team scrambling. Fans want transparency, they want accountability, and they want the WNBA to stop treating officiating like a taboo topic. Because in 2025, silence isn't an option. This social media storm isn't just noise, it's a warning shot fired across the league's bow. If the WNBA doesn't listen, it risks losing the trust of the very fans who are fueling its rise. So, what's the league's next move? Stay tuned, because the response might just set the tone for the rest of the season, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.